All right, guys, this is Scott Webb here again with C2C Sports Investment Group. And we're going to talk today about the NFC game between the Atlanta Falcons and the Philadelphia Eagles. And this is going to be my selection for on Saturday. So we're going to talk first about the open here. The game opened Atlanta minus 2.5. We're in 3 in some cases, depending on where you saw your number. And 43.5 was the total. Currently, you can get Atlanta minus 3, and the total is 41. 57% of the money currently is on Atlanta, and 54% of the money is on the over. 63% of the tickets are on Atlanta, and 70% of the tickets are on the over. So the ticket wagers are high on the over and high on Atlanta. Typically, those are the Joes out there, just walking up to the window and making some wagers. The money, though, is not quite the same flow. 57% on Atlanta, 7% difference, and 54% on the over, which is a much lower number. I think there's a couple things that we need to talk about, too, that's going to affect this game. Number one being the weather. The weather in Philadelphia for tomorrow is supposed to be 34 degrees at kickoff, with the winds blowing about 14 miles an hour. At the end of the game, it's supposed to get down to 31, so that's not much of a drop, but it's still 3 degrees, with the wind blowing 15 miles an hour. And the real feel of the game will start at 25 degrees and drop to 20. So even though this isn't a game like the game in New England where it's going to be in the teens, the reality of this game is that it's going to be very cold, but not snowy and not super cold like Philadelphia can be at times. However, it's supposed to rain today, and it has been raining in Philadelphia today prior to the game start, and it's supposed to taper off throughout the night and into the morning. So it might be a little wet. And if it's a little wet and you have cold and you have wind, that's going to be trouble for offenses, especially offenses that are going to want to throw the ball. So I think the first thing to look at here is going to be how are the teams going to move the ball? What are they going to do because of the weather? And then secondly, we have to take into account that this is the very first time that a number 1 seed in the NFL playoffs has been an underdog. And in fact, only 5 home underdogs have ever been in a divisional round series game since 1970. And of those 5 home dogs, 4 of them have won outright. Only Miami was the one that didn't win. So when it comes to what they're doing in this game, I think there's a lot of disrespect showing to the Philadelphia Eagles here. I mean, I understand, the quarterback Wentz is out, and now you have Nick Foles in there, and we'll talk about that in a second. But if you're the Philadelphia Eagles and you're coming in as the number 1 team in the NFL for most of the season, and now you're an underdog at home, which you've been trying to be the home team throughout the playoffs, the reality is going to be is that you're going to feel disrespected. You're going to have that chip on your shoulder. You're going to be focused. You had a week off. And I think all of those things are going to play into an advantage here for the Eagles because when you are running an offense and going week to week to week, you don't have the time to stop in between and then try to make the changes for the new quarterback. They've had a week off, so I do believe you're going to run into the idea here that Nick Foles is going to have his style of offense for this game. So let's look at a couple other things here I think that are important because this game really is going to come down to a battle of attrition and defense. The scoring defenses, for example, Atlanta allowed 31 touchdowns against the number 4 ranked schedule in the league. That's really a pretty good number because Philadelphia allowed 31 touchdowns as well, but they played the 21st ranked schedule in the league. So it's a little disappointing on the Eagles side because theoretically they're the best defense in the league, and if they allowed 31 touchdowns, the same as Atlanta, you can see that there's been a very big progressional increase for Atlanta, because when they first started, much like the Patriots, they were ranked one of the worst defenses. So red zone scoring. So Atlanta is ranked 23rd on offense, one of the lower tier offenses, and they are ranked number 5 on the defense in red zone scoring touchdowns. So they are much stronger on the defensive side at teams trying to score, and they are not very good on the offensive side of trying to score. So then you look at the Philadelphia side, they're number 1 in offense red zone scoring. Now, that was certainly because of Wentz at the quarterback position. Foles is now the starting quarterback, Wentz being out. You cannot expect him to play to that same degree. Football outsiders tends to think that there's a 20% drop-off between what Wentz was doing to what now Foles will do. So when you start to look at that number 1 is not really something that we should value as that rank at this point. Defense, they rank number 20. Obviously, it doesn't matter who the quarterback is when they are on defense. At number 20, again, that's a pretty poor number for a really good defense. So you have a battle of weaknesses here for the offense for Atlanta. Atlanta is ranked 23rd in the scoring, red zone scoring, with the defense being at 20. So I don't think that's a strength either way, so that sort of negates itself. And then you have defense for Atlanta being ranked 5th. And now if you take 20% down from the number 1 ranking from Philadelphia, you're going to look at them being in the teens someplace. So the defense for Atlanta is going to be able to get some stops on Philadelphia. One of the big things, too, when you're going to hear me break it down when we talk about what happens when the Eagles get the ball, but the Eagles can't run the ball inside the 20-yard line, so that's going to be a significant issue in this game. So what tends to happen with Atlanta, they like to have the quarterback, Matt Ryan, up under center. In fact, he's been up under center 43% of the time, which means that Atlanta is tied with the Rams for the fewest opportunities to be in the shotgun, and that's a significant situation here because the Philadelphia Eagles rank number 1 on defense versus quarterbacks under center. So they get to see the quarterback do whatever he does in terms of dropbacks, reads, and they tend to play very well in that scenario. Philadelphia also has the best, number 1 defense in adjusted line yards. They're second in stuffing runs for a loss of yards or for a no gain. So that means that Atlanta's going to be in a lot of second down and 10, second down and 9, second down and 8 type situations. So Atlanta's going to have to try to run the ball somehow or some way, and typically they like to run up the middle. They like to run behind the center Mac. That's their number 1 spot where they run the ball the best. But again, that's another strong suit for Philadelphia. They rank number 1 at stopping the runs up the middle. So where Atlanta might be able to get a little success in the running game, Philadelphia is not the best at secondary yards. So if they do happen to get through the line, they will get a few extra yards there. They can get a couple of breakaway runs, which may help them with field position, that kind of stuff. The interesting thing, too, that matches up here, Atlanta likes to run a zone blocking scheme, and they've done well in terms of zone blocking versus having pullers come out and lead the running backs. So when you look at it from that perspective, and then what does the defense for Philadelphia do? Again, these are strength against strength. Philadelphia ranks number 1 against zone blocking. Well, I should say number 1. That's not the right thing. They rank much better. They only allow 3 yards per carry against zone rushes, whereas they allow 5.1 yards per carry when they have a puller leading the way against them. So Atlanta, to do well, is going to have to redesign their offense. So theoretically, they should go to a shotgun formation. They should spread the ball out, throw the ball around, and they should not run up the middle. So if they're doing all of these things, then they also need to change their blocking scheme. So really, that's a lot to ask of an offense when you're going up against this type of a defense in this game. Atlanta is favored, and they're favored for a reason, and that reason is going to be their defense and how they kind of came down the pipe here at the end. Looking at it from a perspective of passing and, looking at Julio Jones and some of the wideout targets that Atlanta has, Philadelphia ranks number 7 in covering the number 1 wide receiver for their opponents, and they're number 1 against the second the 2 option for the opponents on offense. So the cornerbacks, the secondary for the defense, they're going to take away the primary weapons. However, there's a path for success here. Atlanta can throw to the others, meaning the 3rd wide receiver, the tight ends, the backs out of the backfield, because Philadelphia ranks number 22 against covering those players. So that puts into play Gabriel, that puts into play Sanu, that puts into play Dante Freeman out of the backfield, because I don't think they're going to be able to really run the ball as efficiently as they might have liked to. So Atlanta on the offense seems to be in a position where they got to change up everything that they like to do, because Philadelphia's strengths are going to be to match that entirely. So if they do those things, what is going to be the expected result? Well, it's not probably what they're used to doing, so it would not be a favorable result. So if you're attacking weaknesses, then their offense needs to be a strong suit in those weaknesses, and they're just not. Their strengths are going to be what Philadelphia's strengths are. And even though the Atlanta defense has gotten much better, as a matter of fact, they rank 4th in the league now, down the stretch and over the last couple of playoff games, the reality is that the Eagles are still the best defense. So no matter what Atlanta's doing on defense, Philadelphia is even that much better. So looking at it from a different level now, let's look at what happens when Philadelphia has the ball, because everything is going to be based on what Nick Foles can or can't do and what the offensive alignments and changes are for this game against Atlanta's defense. And I think the first thing that we need to talk about is, who is Nick Foles and what is he, and is he capable of being a quarterback in this league? And the reality is that he was a starter for a while. He's played a lot of football. He's even had great seasons. But the best thing to say about Nick Foles at this point is that he is a passable backup quarterback in the NFL. I mean, the reality is that he's not the Carson Wentz MVP kind of player, and it's kind of hard to really imagine that he's going to be that. But he's really not the same guy that everybody says he is either, that is the miserable, terrible quarterback that shouldn't even be playing in the league kind of guy. And they're talking about playing a 3rd-team quarterback over him. So that's not really the right way to think, and it's too much of an overreaction to some of what we've seen over the past couple of weeks from Nick Foles. So if we think of him as a passable backup, and we're not going to overreact to it, then we have to start thinking about what's going to happen when they have the ball. Well, the biggest thing that I can think of in this particular spot is that Atlanta's going to blitz. And Atlanta's going to blitz for 2 reasons. One, Nick Foles is the backup quarterback, and they have to try to put pressure on him and see what he can do. Not that Atlanta's been a big blitzing team all season. They rank in the middle to lower end in terms of how many opportunities they do blitz. But the reason that they're going to blitz is because the Philadelphia offensive line is 29th against defensive pressure. So if they rank near the bottom, that's certainly an advantage for Atlanta in the game, is to put pressure on the quarterback. The other problem that Philadelphia has is their wide receivers, I shouldn't say wide receivers, their receiving core, because Zach Ertz is part of this, has 3 players with 7 dropped passes or more. and only one other team, the San Francisco 49ers, are in that category in the entire league. So even if there's some success here with Foles and being able to get the ball to these guys, Aguilar and Zach Ertz, they drop many passes. So they're going to have to try to overcome that as this part of the game goes. And I think what you're going to see from Philadelphia is run. And Atlanta is very strong against the run as they've become better. At the beginning, they were easy to run on. So I think that this is a spot, and even earlier in the year when Atlanta played Miami, Ajayi was able to run the ball for almost 200 yards. Why we went over 200 yards for Miami against Atlanta's defense. So they're going to be able to need to run the ball, put the ball in short opportunities, second downs and shorts, third downs and shorts. Kind of manage the clock, manage the game. Don't put Foles in a position where he's going to have to scramble around, make plays. He's not that kind of quarterback. That's what Wentz was. That's why he's the MVP type player that is in the NFL. But the bigger problem that I see in this game is, it's been said many times about Atlanta's offense of being able to move up and down the field, but they only have very few touchdowns in the red zone on offense, so they just stall out. Well, the truth in this game that you got to keep an eye on is the Philadelphia Eagles and what happens to the Eagles when they get in the red zone. Their problem is that they were number one in red zone scoring as a passing team. As a matter of fact, in terms of DVOA on these Football Outsiders, they're the best that ever was. In terms of that number this year. But that, again, is when we have Wentz and he's running around scrambling, making plays, throwing the ball, getting the results that he's looking for. In this particular case, that's not going to be able to happen with Nick Foles, so they're going to need to be able to do play-action passes. They're going to be able to have the threat of run. The problem is that they are in the red zone rushing. They rank 28th in the NFL, and they just bog down and they get the stacked boxes against them. So they get second and long, then it's third and long, and then now you're asking Foles to do a lot of things that he can't do. And the Atlanta defense is number 4 against the run down in the red zone. So I think these matchups go this way. The line says that Atlanta should be favored in the game, and they're looking at those based off of an overreaction to Nick Foles. They're looking at it based off of the idea that Atlanta is going to throw the ball some. They're going to look at it because Atlanta can stop some of the throwing. But I think that's a pretty good stretch here in all these scenarios that we're talking about. I think I look at it this way. You have a very solid defense in Atlanta. You got the best defense in Philadelphia. So this game is going to be predicated based on defenses. Then you have weather that comes into play. It's cold. It's a little bit damp. I don't know if it's going to be wet. I would just say it's damp. And then you have wind. So it's the wind that keeps the passing to short passes, short plays, nothing deep, nothing long. So I don't want to tell you that it's going to look like the game that was played last week with the Jacksonville and Buffalo, but I do think you're going to see a very limited number of scoring opportunities. You're going to see kicking field goals and see who can kick the ball in the wind, in the swirling wind too in a Philadelphia zone. I think that's going to be kind of how this plays out. So in that regard, and you're looking at two defenses, I would tell you Philadelphia's is a little bit better. I don't think that Nick Foles is as bad as everybody says he is. You've got a home dog with a very strong chip on their shoulder. They're going to be very motivated. They're going to be inspired to play. I'm going to take the Philadelphia Eagles plus the 3 points. I'm also going to go under the 41. So two separate plays. One is the Eagles plus the 3, and then under 41. But I think I like a teaser here too. I don't really do teasers that often, but if you're going to do a 6-point teaser, this might be the way to go. You can take the Philadelphia Eagles plus the 9. So you would like to hopefully get it to 10. I don't think you're ever going to see that number because I don't think it's going to get to 4. I think 3 is where they want it. I think 3 is what the sports books want. So 3 is going to be that number. You can get the Eagles plus 9. You can also get the under 47 as a 6-point teaser. So I got 3 plays on this game. They're all going to be 1-unit plays, nothing special, nothing great on this one in terms of just a regular game, no 2-unit play here. But three individual plays, you're going to go with the Eagles plus 3. You're going to go with the under 41, and you're going to play a teaser in this game with the Eagles plus 9, and you're going to play the under 47. All right, guys, so let's make sure this one happens, and let's get ready for the evening game. Talk to you guys in a little bit.